Hello, you are on the channel Ruslan Belov, and today is August 2nd, 2025. This is a brief overview of the frontline situation. As of today, changes are taking place in the South Donetsk direction, the Pokrovsk direction, the Kostyantynivka direction, the Siversk direction, the Krasny Liman direction, and the Kupyansk direction. There are also minor updates near Volchansk, and new information is emerging regarding the Sumy axis. We'll go over all the developments in more detail, moving from south to north. But before we continue, we kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps the channel grow and ensures you stay updated on the latest events. As always, we begin with Kamenka. The settlement of Kamenka is now fully under the control of the Russian Armed Forces, RAF. There are also reports that Russian troops have entered the town of Stepnogorsk. Regarding Plavny, active offensive operations are ongoing from the east and south of this settlement. Moving further along the map, active combat is ongoing in 3 other settlements already under Russian control. The fighting is now advancing toward Pavlovka, with battles taking place in the fields between these locations. Zooming out slightly, intensive combat continues along the entire front line toward Orakov. In Novoandreevka, Novopavlovka, and Novodanilovka, FPV drone strikes have been reported against Ukrainian positions. In the area of Novoandreevka, active clashes have begun from the direction of Nestoryanka. As for Mala, Tokmachka, particularly its outskirts, there is currently no specific information, but fighting continues deeper into the settlement. Moving east on the map, reports confirm that active fighting has begun in Belogorie, with part of the settlement taken by Russian forces. The town of Lugovskoye is completely under Russian control, and the battles are now north of it, in the fields toward Charivne. Next on the map, the town of Mirnoy is completely under Russian control, as is Zagonoye. However, battles are ongoing along a field line, with Ukrainian forces being gradually pushed back. Moving toward Malinovka, intense clashes are reported north of Dorozhenyanka, and active fighting has begun south of Vysokoye. North of Marfapol, Ukrainian forces are conducting counter-offensive actions. There are also reports of FPV drone strikes on Ukrainian positions in Gulyapol, Zatishye, and near Zeleny Gai. Malinovka is under full Russian control, with the offensive advancing toward Poltavka. Continuing further, Levadnoye is also under Russian control, with fighting ongoing on its outskirts. Ukrainian forces continue to launch counterattacks near Stepovoy and Vishnevoy. Northward, Novodarovka, Zelenoye Pol, and Novopol are fully under Russian control, as is the majority of Temirovka. However, clashes continue in the northern part of Temirovka. Further north, Ukrainian counterattacks are ongoing in the fields near Malievka and Shevchenko. Both Malievka and Voskresenka are controlled by Russian forces, along with adjacent farmland. Continuing north, active hostilities are reported in several settlements, specifically Ukrainian sabotage group operations in Mirnoye, Podobnoye, Tolstoye, Zeleny, Gai, Novokatskoye, Grushevskoye, Zirka, Yalta, and Zaporozhye. FPV drone strikes are also being launched by Ukraine on Russian positions in these settlements. The area between Novokatskoye, Grushevskoye, and Yalta saw Ukrainian counter-offensive success, and this part of the territory is now under their control. Ukraine continues active assaults around Grushevskoye. Continuing, this portion of the fields is now under Russian control, and the offensive is progressing towards Zeleny Kut, Novukrainka, and Dakhnoye. Ukrainian fortified positions remain along this line, with counter-offensive actions ongoing into these settlements. Further north, Kotlyarovka is fully under Russian control, with Russian forces advancing toward Muravka. In Novonikolaevka, especially its northern area, heavy fighting continues. Reports indicate that Russian forces are gradually entering Muravka. Going further, intense fighting is underway on the outskirts of Udakhnoye, while Ukrainian counterattacks target the town of Kotlino. Now let's move to the Pokrovsk direction. Zverevo is under Russian control, as is the majority of Leontovichi. Russian forces have advanced into Pokrovsk, gradually taking more favorable positions and moving through the streets. The map is not yet fully updated, but once new data arrives, recent gains will be clearly shown. It's also reported that fields south of Pokrovsk are under Russian control, and the offensive continues into the town. Russian forces are also pushing into the northern part of Pokrovsk, occupying key tactical areas. South of this direction, Zelenoye is under full Russian control, and fighting has shifted to Novukrainka and Chunishino. FPV drone strikes are being launched at Novopavlovka. Most of Lisovka is now under Russian control, but in Dakhanskoye, Ukrainian forces are conducting counter-offensive operations. In Sukhoi Yar, there is no active fighting yet, but FPV strikes have been recorded on Ukrainian positions there. Nikolaevka is fully controlled by Russian forces, and hostilities are shifting toward Promin. Next, in this field sector, Ukrainian counterattacks continue toward Gradovka and Mirolyubovka. Ukraine is making gains toward Mirolyubovka, while in Gradovka, Russian forces are repelling counterattacks. Moving on, Nikolaevka and Novoekonomichesko are currently under full Russian control, though the map has not yet been updated to reflect this. We're also receiving reports that Chervony Lyman is under the control of the Russian armed forces, and active hostilities have already begun in the settlement of Rodinskoye. Additionally, the following area is reportedly now under Russian control. Razino, Fyodorovka, Boykovka, Novotoretskoye and Mayak are now fully under Russian control. Fighting has approached the settlements of Zatishok and Nikanorovka, and offensive operations are being conducted from Novoekonomichesko toward Mirnograd. There is also information indicating that Russian forces have advanced toward Novoe Shakovo and entrenched themselves south of it. Currently, this sector sees the most intense combat across the entire front line. Once the map is updated, we'll be able to visually track the progression of Russian forces. Moving further on the map, this previously grey zone is now fully controlled by Russian forces, and the offensive is continuing toward Vladimirovka. Fighting also continues in Poltavka, particularly in the northeastern part of the settlement. Continuing on, in Alexandro-Kalinovo, the situation remains mostly unchanged. Though almost the entire settlement is now under Russian control, active battles are ongoing on its outskirts. Zooming out, the fields stretching from Romanovka to Shcherbinovka are now controlled by Russian forces. Offensive operations continue in the direction of Konstantinovka, and active combat has started in the towns of Katarinovka, Pleshchevka, and Alexandro-Shultino. Moving further north on the map, Ukrainian trenches and fortifications are concentrated along this line. Here, Russian forces are actively attacking, but no significant territorial changes have been recorded yet. Regarding the Chasiv Yar direction, active fighting continues in the northern part of the settlement of Stupochki. The area between Chasiv Yar and Nikolaevka is now under Russian control, including a formerly grey zone. The zone of Russian control continues to expand toward Nikolaevka. Russian troops are also advancing from the north and south sides of Nikolaevka, as well as from northern Stupochki, now moving north toward Ivano-Daryevka. Both Vyemka and Ivano-Daryevka are fully under Russian control, as is a portion of the forest belt extending to Novoselovka. Zooming in, this entire area is now under Russian control, and offensives are ongoing toward Siversk, as well as through the fields near Serebryanka. In Serebryanka itself, fighting is taking place on the outskirts. The forests and fields north of Serebryanka are fully controlled by Russian forces. Moving slightly north on the map, Ukrainian forces are conducting counter-offensive operations in the direction of Dibrova. Then we move to Torskoye. Intense combat continues in the northern part of the settlement, though no major changes have occurred. Continuing north toward Zelenaya Dolina, the town is under full Russian control, as are the surrounding forest belts. Just south of Karpovka, the territory was contested, but Ukrainian counterattacks are ongoing. Counteroffensives are also being carried out by Ukrainian forces in Redkodub. However, Katarinovka and Novomikhailovka are already completely controlled by Russian forces. Moving further north, we're receiving information that hostilities have begun in the towns of Grekovka, Olgovka, Druzhulyubovka, Chervony Stav, Stepovoye, and Chernenshina, and FPV drone strikes are being recorded on Ukrainian positions. In the forest area south of Sviatlovka, Ukrainian forces are conducting counter-offensives. Zooming out again. Along this entire line of contact, No significant territorial shifts have been recorded so far. Fighting continues. As soon as more information is available, we'll analyze this direction in greater detail. Now to the Kupyansk direction. Active combat is ongoing in Glushkovka, and the nearby forests and fields are under Russian control. Fighting also continues in Stepovaya Novosilovka, pushing toward Peshanoye. However, in this adjacent forested area, Ukrainian counterattacks are taking place. FPV drone launches targeting Ukrainian troop positions are also being reported. Moving north on the map, this section is now under full Russian control, including the territory south of Moskovka. Fighting is now taking place on the outskirts of northern Kupyansk, and also in Moskovka, Kucheryovka, and Petropavlovka. FPV drone strikes are being recorded in Kupyansk and in Sobolevka. Further up the map, active fighting has begun in Tishchenkovka. Kondrashovka is fully under Russian control, though Ukrainian counteroffensives have begun from Malaya Shapkovka and through the forest belts toward Doroshovka. Further north, active combat continues in Figolevka and Dolgonkoye, while Ukrainian forces have launched counterattacks in the fields and forests between these settlements. Zooming out, in Kamenka, Krasnoye Pervoye, and Katne, there have been no recent changes. Once updates arrive, we'll revisit these areas in more detail. Now shifting toward Volchansk. In Volchansk itself, the situation is calm. However, in the forest areas south of Mariino, active fighting continues, and these forests are gradually falling under Russian control. Continuing, north of the town of Staritsa, Ukrainian counterattacks are ongoing, as they are from Zelenoye towards Sereda. In Lukyantsy, Ukrainian forces are carrying out counterattacks from the south and west. Moving further up the map toward Gornal, this settlement is fully under Russian control, although intense fighting is taking place in the surrounding area. Most of the surrounding region is now controlled by Russian forces, although Ukrainian counteroffensives are underway toward Gornal. In Yunakovka, the situation remains unchanged. Half is under Ukrainian control, half under Russian. There are changes near Kondratovka and Andreevka. Active fighting is reported in Kondratovka. Andreevka is fully controlled by Ukrainian forces, and this area is shifting in their favor as they conduct counterattacks from the forest belts between Kondratovka and Andreevka, and from Andreevka toward Alexievka. Zooming out, in the fields and forests between Obod and Konstantinovka, Ukrainian counterattacks are continuing toward Sergeyevka and Elizavetovka. There is also information regarding Tyotkino. A small portion near Beselovka has come under Ukrainian control. In the southern area of Tyotkino, Ukrainian forces have been carrying out attacks for several days, advancing toward the town. As soon as more detailed information becomes available and the map is updated, we will provide a clearer picture of the territorial control. That's all for today's report. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us grow and keeps you informed about the latest developments and frontline updates.